Hello friends, today the article which we are analyzing is published on Hindu July 3rd. The title of the article is India's Torture Culture Need to End Now. The author of this article is Ajit Prakash Shah. He is a retired Chief Justice, Delhi and Madras High Court. So this article is written in the context of that recent tragic death due to police torture in Tamil Nadu. Now we know that torture by police is a sad reality in India, and police is resorting to torture for extracting so-called truth for investigation purpose, and there are other reasons may be possible. So now we'll analyze here that why and how police force in India is employing torturous method as a law enforcement tool. So what we see in India, that torture is not a episodic incident, but it is endemic, and it is somehow become a part of systemic problem. That means the problem is within the system of policing, and it is across the board. With not only it is limited in Tamil Nadu, but all other places of India, you will find that police is resorting to torture. So this we, as per author, what author is saying, that torture in fact become an integral part of police culture all over the country. And this culture of torturing is not a new phenomena, because it's something which we are carrying over from the colonial time. Because in colonial time, the torturing people was the way police force used to suppress people. So it is a reminiscent of brutality of colonial police force. And in official account, torture is also accepted as a sad reality. This is the thing we are seeing happening in India with relation to police behavior. And we see that there is no sincere effort made by government to enact law against torture, because torture is somehow considered as an integral part of policing culture, and in some cases, mostly those who are related to terrorism, it is treated as a centerpiece, because the current law facilitate such torture. How? Because the extraction or the confession one gets through torture is admissible in the court. So to extract a confession, torture is being used mostly in terror related cases. And there is not much incentive also paid for employing new technology like forensic science, DNA testing, or this voice related testing. So if we introduce this new technology for collecting evidence, then there will be less requirement of torturing people and extracting confession from them. And somehow author thinks that it seems government agree that police brutality is a necessary evil to maintain law and order. So somehow government thinks that police brutality is needed to maintain law and order. that is a necessary evil. And in that direction, government generally is doing nothing as per author's opinion, because they all want to maintain status quo, where police are used as a tool for self-preservation, and they don't want to change this equilibrium. So this is the context which we see not only in the Tamil Nadu case but all across India, that somehow this torturing has become the part of police culture, and it is not only in Tamil Nadu but it is happening all across India, and there is not any sincere effort made to bring any law against police torture, and it has become a part of some kind of culture, and government also believe that brutality is needed to maintain law and order. So this is the context where we see that recent tragic death due to police torture happened in Tamil Nadu. So what is the legal remedy one can take against this torture done by police forces? So author says that there is a requirement of stringent legal framework that is aligned with the principle of international law under the UN Convention Against Torture, UNCAT. So what is author's opinion is that we should have a stringent legal framework, a law which is in compliance with our obligation under international law, which is made under UN Convention Against Torture. So India signed this UN Convention Against Torture in 1997, but still it has not ratified it. And regarding this thing, people have gone to Supreme Court that since it is India's obligation and since India has signed it, SC should ask government to enact a law against torture. But that petition to SC, Supreme Court, was not entertained. For this reason, author is little bit disappointed, because if you see the Supreme Court, it has a history of glorious jurisprudence highlighting the many problems with the country's torture culture. It has done tremendous work in the field of sexual abuse or related to environment and other pertinent issue concerning common citizen. So we see that there are various decisions, and here in the article it is mentioned, like I'll read that Ranveer Singh versus State of Haryana case, and there is another case of Francis Corley Moulin versus Union Territory of Delhi. So by using Article 21, Supreme Court has given judgment for various areas. So here in the article we see those judgment, and the reason for them for the Supreme Court to act on those areas is that those things are violative of Article 21 of the Constitution. In that direction, there was attempt also made to enact a bill that was brought to the parliament, but somehow that has not passed. So what author is suggesting that since government is not willing to bring reform and government is also not willing to enact law against torture, and India, even though it has signed the UN Convention Against Torture, there is not much movement in that direction, because government is not willing to bring that much reform. So there is a need for people and other like-minded organization, including bar, NGOs, civil societies, to create a movement so that we can bring this point to the notice of government, so that the necessary legislative change can be brought, so that this problem of police torture can be solved. So this concludes the analysis of first article. The second article which we are analyzing is again published on Hindu, July 3rd. The title of the article is "In an Uncertain World, a Seat at the Global High Table." This article is written by T.P. Srinivasan. And the background of the article is that recent India is becoming a non-permanent member of United Nations Security Council. So before going further into this article, we'll see the role of non-permanent member in United Nations Security Council, and particularly the role of India in UN forum. So India becoming a non-permanent member of UNSC is coming at very interesting time, because the India's term will start from January 1, 2021. So by the time India joined this United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member, US election will be over, and hopefully this COVID situation will also get subsided, and there will be a post-COVID new world order will be emerging. The way the new world order will develop post-COVID situation, that contour will be visible by the time India joined to UN Security Council as a non-permanent member. So that will be an interesting time for India, because there may be change in the way the global politics is going to be done after post-COVID situation. And India is not new to this forum. India has served 8 times earlier, and India has a record of contributing to some of the seminal resolution of Security Council. And India has a credibility or reputation of taking balanced position, not in going in one direction, but in a balanced way. And India also focused on building consensus. So this is the credential India has made in that multilateral forum. And coming to the non-permanent member in UN Security Council, non-permanent member have a collective veto over every resolution in the council. So there are groups of non-permanent member, and collectively they can exercise veto over any resolution of the council. And since India will become a non-permanent member, so India will have a privilege to join the consultation which is going on Security Council, which is a privileged grouping of United Nations, and those who are not a member of Security Council, they do not have access to the consultation. What is the reasoning, or what is the way decisions are made? India will become a party to that at global level. And India will have to get involved in many issues over which there is no direct interest, particularly of India. There may be global interest, but India may not have any high stake on that issue, but India will have to get involved in those issues because of being a non-permanent member of United Nations Security Council. So in that context, author also give a suggestion that India has to proceed cautiously, because when you take a decision, there is a chance of offending the other party. So this may be detrimental, because when India has to push some cases in his own interest, that may affect our case also. And India is committed to provide leadership and new orientation for reform multilateral system. So that is the thing. We see that India has a track record, and India has joined become the non-permanent member at very right time, and the way India has to conduct his business at United Nations Security Council. In that context, we all are aware that India long quest for becoming a permanent member. So in that context, author is not very hopeful, because majority of United Nations member are against even for the existing privilege of permanent members, and they don't want to increase the list also, particularly of their veto power. So there is not much support for extending the list of permanent member, and people and member countries are not also happy with the veto power of existing member. So in that context, India to make a case for becoming a permanent member with veto power will be very difficult, because for that thing charter has to be amended. That is again pose a big challenge for India. So rather than wasting energy on this account, India should focus on other issues which is more doable, like counter-terrorism, because at global level there is a problem of defining terrorism. So there is no agreed definition of terrorism. UN also has the same problem of defining the terrorism, and in that line India can help. And India should also work on a comprehensive convention on international terrorism. So these are the two pending things which is of India's interest, and India should push for to have a comprehensive convention on international terrorism, including the definition of terrorism. So this concludes the analysis of second article. Now I will go to the third article. The third thing which I am analyzing is an editorial published on July 3rd. The title of the editorial is Staying Alert. This is written in the context of COVID situation and how COVID situation is affecting the tracking or alert or surveillance of other diseases. So for tracking diseases, a integrated disease surveillance program is there, IDSP. It is called IDSP, Integrated Disease Surveillance Program, which is responsible for alerting the center and the wider world on a weekly basis about the emergence of disease outbreak, a surge in novel pathogen. So this organization issue an alert on a weekly basis about any emerging disease outbreak or any novel pathogen across the country. This organization on an average per week issue alert for 30 or 40 cases on an average. That was the record we have seen. But due to this COVID situation, there is a what we see that there is a lack of public update since March. It is not updating as regularly, or there is no update after March of any disease outbreak by the organization. So this is an area of concern, that why updates are not coming. Because the latest weekly report available is of week 12, which is from March 16 to 22, and that also only contained 6 alert, which is very less compared to what generally we used to get. It is coming down to 6 from the earlier average of 30 to 40. So why this alert has came down? Because due to COVID-19, reporting of other diseases suffered. There is a less reporting of other diseases because of COVID-19, because COVID-19 is hogging all the limelight. And some other genuine reduction is also there because of decline in contagious disease, waterborne disease, or based on air. There are many disease, viral disease, which also we have seen that declined in this period where COVID-19 is taking lead. And since our focus is on COVID-19, there is a reduction in notification of fresh TB case. So TB case, related to TB case, notification got we have seen that reduction is happening in the notification of TB cases, fresh TB cases. So what article editorial is suggesting, that we need to improve surveillance as well as provide timely update to the public and to the International Health Agency, because that is utmost important. And we should not allow COVID-19 situation to somehow suppress other fatal diseases. So this concludes the analysis of third article. I hope this will help you to improve your understanding. Thank you.